In this foundation piecing tutorial, I am going to walk you through the 3 best methods I've used to make that perfect quilt block. And one of these techniques I bet you have never heard of before, but it really is my favorite. Now, if you're new to foundation piecing, or some call it foundation paper piecing, it's a method of creating the perfect quilt block, perfect points, perfect size, perfect fit using fabric shapes, a marked paper pattern, and your sewing machine. That is it. I absolutely love it. Nothing compares to the accuracy that you get from foundation piecing. Be sure to watch all the way to the end of the video because I include a special gift for you that will help you to master all the techniques, and different quilters often prefer different methods when it comes to the assembly. So I am sure one of these methods is going to work for you. First of all, I'm going to show you the supplies you will need generally for foundation piecing. Some of these you may not need depending on which method you choose, and you'll find out which one you prefer after the demonstration. So first of all, this is the block that we're going to make. It's just a simple square and a square block. It's very easy. The first thing you will want to do is print out copies of the foundation pattern. The foundation pattern is just a paper that is the exact size of the block. It includes the seam allowance. It also has the pieces numbered in order, so you know. We start with this one, we go to 2, 3, 4, and 5. I will show you how to mark the foundation paper in order to make this task that much quicker and that much easier. The first thing you'll want to do is print enough foundation patterns for each block that you will be making, because you can only use them once. I usually use copy paper, just the cheapest brand. It seems to be thinner. The cheaper the brand, the paper is a little bit thinner, so it's easier to remove. You can also use a newsprint, sometimes doodle pads that you buy at the dollar store. They're a little bit larger than a regular 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper, so you have to cut them back if you're going to put them in your printer, but they also are easy to remove. But I'm going to show you a few methods here that will make it easy. It's not going to make any difference what type of paper you use if you follow these methods. So in addition to copying that foundation pattern, you will need to get your fabrics together that you plan to use, and you're going to first press them with some pressing solution before you even cut what you need. The Premium Quilting and Crafting Spray is what I use. Mary Ellen's Best Press, I use that as well. Just depends on what your preferred method is. You want something that's not going to flake. These seem to work really well for that. So you will give them a good spray. I don't saturate them. I usually just spray enough that they get a little bit stiff, and then cut out whatever pieces you need. We'll talk about that in a minute. You'll need a good rotary cutter with a new blade in it, because the paper does dull your blade. So you're going to want to make sure that the blade you have is a good blade to start your project. I like this little pressing tool. Sometimes when you don't have the iron right close by, you can use the pressing tool and flatten out those seams. That's up to you. Some people use a little roller that you get at Lowe's or Menards or something in the wallpaper section to flatten out those seams as well. I just use my iron. You'll need some scissors just in case. You especially will need some washable glue stick. We use the glue stick all the time when it comes to pretty much any quilting I do. So you'll want something that's washable. You can find these very inexpensively. I buy several. They go quickly because we do use it quite a bit. You will need your seam ripper. Sorry to say, it happens. This is my stylus. My seam ripper is on the other end. You'll need some flat head pins. This helps to position your pieces of fabric on your foundation, and then you just hold them in place. So I like the flat head pins because they just don't get caught underneath my needle when I'm sewing. You'll need a couple of rulers. For sure you're going to need a ruler that has a cleanly marked 1/4 inch line. I like the Creative Grids 2.5 by 12.5 because that is marked, and I can use it for pretty much any block size that I have. So this is really important to have that good straight edge. Some people like to use the add a 1/4 ruler. I've used this as well. I don't really have a preference. Either one works. It has a straight edge on this side, and then it has a lipped edge on this side that helps you to hug that seam. When you're doing your foundation piecing, it helps you to line everything up accurately and cut a very accurate 1/4 inch seam. These come in 6-inch size and then also in the longer 12.5 inch size, and I've used both. We're doing a smaller block, so I'm going to use the smaller ruler. Since our block that we're doing in the demonstration is 6.5 inches, I like the 6.5 inch Creative Grids ruler. You can use a larger one too, and a larger one will help stabilize that block when you place it on top and cut around the edges to trim up your block. I'm going to use the 6.5 inch. Now, here's where the methods come into play. I have these 3 tools that I absolutely cannot live without. It used to be that we would just use our ruler to fold our paper when we were foundation piecing. And that works well, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You can just use the straight edge of your ruler. The issue that we have with that is removing the paper in the end. Now, you set a tight stitch length on your machine. That helps to perforate, but every little bit helps. And one thing that you can do is you can either use a tracing wheel. Do you remember these from the old sewing days? They are not sharp, but they will dent the paper. They won't cut it. They won't perforate through, but they will make it easier for you to fold. So keep that in mind, and I'll show you how that works. And then this is a perforating blade. This is not a skip stitch blade. A skip stitch blade, these little perforating blades are much farther apart, and that doesn't work well for small piecing. This works really well. It's available on Amazon. Any of these products are. This one is not available in a lot of places. I've only been able to find it on Amazon. And actually, if you purchase the blade, any rotary cutter that holds a 45mm blade will work. So you'll need that cutter, but you'll just buy the blades, and they're very inexpensive and they work like a charm. So I'm going to take you through all of the methods, and then you can decide which one you prefer. I'll tell you which one I prefer. Before you begin, I like to have my checklist to make sure that I have everything ready to go, because it is so easy to forget something. And then once you've started piecing, you can't go back. You have to start over. So the first thing I want to make sure that I do is I want to make sure that I have all of my pieces cut and ready to go. I usually stack them and clip them in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and make sure that I have all of them cut to size. Now, in my patterns, I always give you the size. I'll say A1 needs to be 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, and A2 needs to be 4 1/2 by 4 1/2 cut on the diagonal, so you can use it for 2 of the pieces on the block. I do that, but many foundation patterns do not. You have to figure that out on your own. I have seen people just take huge pieces of fabric, place the piece of fabric over the area, make sure it covers it, and sew it on, and then just cut off all the excess pieces. I struggle with that because, first of all, I'm not able to see well where it needs to be, what we need to cut. And second of all, I don't mind wasting a little fabric, but I don't like wasting fabric, first of all, that's a huge piece that I can't use, or that has bias edges because I haven't lined everything up. Those are the 2 things that are difficult for me when I just put any old piece on here and then cut it. So I do measure, and I'm going to show you how I measure to make sure that I have all the right pieces. Now, A1 is simple. That's very easy to measure. You just measure the square, which I've measured, and if you look, that square all around the lines is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So we have 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. That's the measurement. Then we need to add a 1/2 inch on. So 4 1/4 plus a 1/2 inch to each side gives us 4 3/4. That will be the perfect size piece with a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the edge. That's fine if you're really good at lining everything up and you're not worried about things getting off kilter a little bit. It does save you from having to do some extra trimming. But I have found that I like to just round up to the next 1/4 inch. So 5 inches by 5 inches is what I am actually going to cut my square to. So that's what I've cut. My piece A1 is 5 inches by 5 inches. That is going to go on that center section. Now you're going to want to check it, make sure it fits before you do any more, and I'll show you how to do that with the light board. But let's get the other pieces cut. Okay, so we're going to measure that triangle with our ruler, and as you can see, it goes from 3 inches to 3 inches, corner to corner to diagonal. So the way that we calculate that measurement is we are going to take that 3 inches and add 1.5 inches. It doesn't matter what size this triangle is, what you're doing, if you're doing a more complex block, and if you measure this one, the same thing, this one's 2 1/8. we still will add that 1.5 inches no matter what. That accounts for all of the seam allowances that we have, and then gives us a little bit of extra so that just in case we don't have it quite lined up correctly, we still will cover that entire area that we're going to use. Now, sometimes, depending on the pieces, I will cut out a piece of, I'll actually cut out a square that size, 4.5 by 4.5, and cut it on the diagonal as my test piece. It's much easier than wasting fabric. You only have to do it one time. And then I place it on top just to make sure, and I can see through the paper, and I can see there are my edges, my points, and there's plenty of fabric around the edge. So I know that I'm going to be good and my area is going to be covered. Yes, there is a little bit of waste, but not as much waste as if you just randomly cut pieces of fabric and place them on there. So now that we have all of our pieces cut, I'm going to be using for the corners a green, just so you can see, a green and an orange, and then the blue for the center. I'm going to cut these pieces on the diagonal like I show in the picture, and then those will be the pieces that I'm going to be using in my block. Now again, I'll line those up. I want to make sure that our cut is good. And there we have the 4 pieces. When I put my block together, I want to have A1 first, A2, let's say we want those green, and I will mark those ahead of time so I don't get them mixed up. Now, I can't mark them on here, blue, we know this one, just because you might use totally different fabrics than I do. So before you even begin, decide where you want your colors. That way, when you piece this particular A3, you know you've got a green one here and not an orange. So we're going to put them in order. That's another double check. A1, A2 is green, A3 is green, A4 is orange, and A5 is orange. So we have those pieces together and we're going to place them with our block. I'm going to show you on each piece a different way to mark these in order to finish your block. So A1, I'll show you in a minute how we place that using the light board. Before we place anything, we need to do that prep work. If you wait and start placing your fabrics, you can't. You can't do the prep work because you'll cut into your fabric and you don't want to do that. So this needs to be done at the beginning when it comes to using any of these tools. When it comes to using your ruler to just fold along the edge, then you do that as you go along, and that is not a big deal. So we're going to start out, I'm going to show you with A2, our green piece. I'm going to show you how to use the ruler in order to fold the edge. So with the ruler method and none of these extra tools, you're going to place your ruler right along the edge, right here, of that line, the A1, A2 line, and you're going to fold it back. You can also do that with your add a quarter ruler because it's got a nice little edge there too, and just fold it back. Then you'll fold it along this edge and proceed with piecing A2. But I'm just going to show you. That's how we do the ruler. Okay, so A3, I'm going to show you how to use the tracing wheel. Now, I have 2 tracing wheels here. This one I got at Hobby Lobby. I think it was $2. It's kind of wobbly. I'm a little worried with the pressure that I put on it that it will break. If you're very careful, you can see it doesn't hold up really well. So if that's all you have, use it. Otherwise, I bought this one at Joann's. This was just a Dritz cutter, but this one's a little sturdier. It has a better handle. So for piece A3, we're going to still use our ruler. We're still going to place it right along the edge of the A1, A3 line, and then we're going to push pretty hard, and we're going to make that perforation. Now, you can feel it. I don't know if you can see it. It's going to allow you to fold right back on that line. It doesn't cut the paper, so removing the paper is still going to be the same issue you have with sewing, but it does have a little bit of an indent there that does help. Now, if we go to A4, I'm going to show you how to use the perforating blade. Place your ruler just like you did before, and then just do that. And you can see you've got a nice perforation on the opposite side as well that's going to allow that. The nice thing about this is those are cuts. So when you go to remove the paper, it removes it really easy. The downside to this, you cannot go back and forth. You can only do one time and you're done. So if you get off kilter, you can't really redo it. You're going to cut that paper, you're going to cut that piece off. The other thing is, if I'm doing a block that has very small lines, I don't necessarily like this as well because those perforations are pretty far apart and it doesn't seem to do the trick as well as this. So if it's a small block, maybe a log cabin, small pieces, maybe a square and a square and a square and a square, then I'm going to use this just because it's just a little bit better. It doesn't cause that paper to tear as easily as it does with this. What happens if you do tear off that piece by accident and you are in the middle of a block? Just take a piece of tape, Scotch tape, and just tape right on top of it. It's not going to matter. It doesn't bother your iron because it's on the opposite side, and it will keep that piece in place until you're ready to remove the paper. So let's go ahead and let's piece this block, beginning with piece A1. The first thing we need to do is we need to position our A1 piece, which is that 5" by 5" square, in this area. Remember, we sew on the marked side, but our fabric will be on the unmarked side. So we're kind of sewing blindly. When we have our light board under here, we can see through the paper, and it's easy for us to position the pieces that we need to, especially that first piece, A1. Remember that wrong side up on our pieces. So this is the wrong side. You can't really tell with a solid color, but this would be the wrong side, and the wrong side is going to be placed against the unmarked side, always. So wrong side up, I'm going to position that so that I have at least a 1/4 inch all the way around the edge. You can see it's a little bit extra, so we will have to do some trimming, but I like extra. I think it tends to make things that much easier in the end because you know you've got enough fabric, you know that area is covered. Then we're going to take our glue stick and we're going to just put a dab of glue on the back to secure that piece in place because they can roam a little bit. They can move around and we want to make sure that it stays in place. Not a lot of glue. You don't want to completely glue it down because then it can get a little skewed and distorted, but just enough to keep it in place. So now we're going to start adding those pieces to the corners, and I will show you each one of those methods I discussed in adding those pieces, and you can decide which one you like best. So my pieces are all ready to go. They're in order. I know my piece A2 is green. This was the edge that we took our ruler, we placed it along here, and we folded it back. Now to finish up the process, we're going to fold it all the way back, and then we want to trim this to an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you can see it's not quite, it's a little skewed. So you can either use your ruler and place the 1/4 inch, that dashed line, right on the fold, and then you're going to trim back. So this is where the add a 1/4 is nice. Again, not mandatory, but just a little convenient when it comes to cutting those pieces off, and I like that lip on there. So now we have a nice beautiful 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we are going to add our next piece. You want to make sure that piece is centered. I like to line up my 2 corner points on a line on my cutting mat, and then I'm going to mark the center points of this piece. So I'm going to mark one here and one here. And you can do this with any triangles that you're adding to your foundation block. You don't have to, but for me, it just makes it a little bit easier because I know that my triangles are going to be centered with those lines. So now I have the lines, and we will use those as we go along. A2 is here. A2 needs a green piece. So then we're going to take our piece and fold it right sides together, match those points, and do a little finger press right there. That's going to give us a bit of a fold, a crease that we can see, and we're going to line that crease right up with that pencil line that we drew, and then we're going to line the raw edges up. Once we've done that, we're going to take our flathead pins, and you want to make sure that you put it way down. You don't want to get it anywhere near that seam because you don't want to drive over those with your sewing machine needle. You'll break your needle. You could ruin your machine if the pin gets stuck down inside of it. So you want to make sure that it's far enough away. And then you are going to sew on the A1, A2 line. So you're going to start beyond. Some people like to take a back stitch right here and then finish up with a back stitch just to secure the piece. I find that there's enough leeway right here that as long as I pass the intersections with each seam that I sew, it secures it enough. So it's up to you. I don't usually take that back stitch, but you can. When you are sewing, you want to make sure that you have set your stitch length at a short stitch length, 1.8, 1.7, something like that, because again, that's going to help to perforate the paper. So I have done that. I've started beyond that intersection. I've continued off the paper. I'm going to remove my pins, and then I am going to press toward the newly added piece. We always press toward the newly added piece. If you want to use your roller, you can do that. If you want to use your iron, you can do that. I'm going to iron it. And now I have that piece. It covers the entire area with a little tiny bit of extra. I think it's worth the waste to make sure that we have that area covered. Now we are going to go with A3. I like to do diagonal piecing, and then these sides, you can go around. It doesn't matter. These are the exact same pieces, whatever way you like to do it. For trimming, for me, it helps to do opposite corners and then finish up with the other opposite corners. Remember, for the A1, A3 line, we used our tracing wheel. So we have a nice perforation there, but it did not cut the paper. So it folds. We don't even need to use our ruler at this point. It folds nicely on there. And then we are going to place our 1/4 inch marking on our ruler right on that fold and trim. So we've got a little bit of extra. We have a perfect seam allowance. And now we're going to do the very same thing we did with this piece. We're going to fold it wrong sides together. Match up those points, little crease right there. Match the crease with that pencil mark that we drew. And then we are going to add the pins to secure them, and we want to keep it away from the seam line. Now we're going to go back and we're going to sew on that A1, A3 line, and we will press toward the newly added piece, the green A3. You want to make sure that everything is pressed neatly and there are no tucks in here or folds at all. So now that we've done those two opposite corners, this is why I like to do opposite corners, because we still need to trim that 1/4 inch. And that way we're going to trim off those little dog ears at the same time. So with A4, we have used the perforating blade. So let's see how that folds back. And look at, you have to release those stitches right there. But look at how easily that folds back. We are going to place our 1/4 inch marking of our ruler right on the fold and trim that back. Once again, we've got that nicely trimmed edge. You want to be careful because this is a little fragile now that it's been perforated and folded. We're going to take our next piece and we are going to fold. We're going to fold it in half just like we did before. Wrong sides together, and then we will place that crease lined up right here with the marking on our paper. We'll add the 2 pins. And then we are going to sew on that A1, A4 line. Now this one, since this is a large block, you can actually pin the next piece as well. We didn't do anything with this one, so I'm just going to use my ruler. This is what we would do otherwise. I'm going to fold it back. I am going to make sure this is where, this is where the ruler, it's not quite as accurate because you have to keep double checking and making sure you folded right on that line. And then once again, trim that seam allowance. And of course you can still use the add a 1/4 on here as well. On all of these places you can use the add a 1/4. So I'm going to just go ahead and add that next piece. We're going to fold it wrong sides together. Line up the crease. Now, right sides together here. And we are going to add our other 2 pins. Now we're going to go ahead and sew on both of these lines and then press toward, again, the newly added pieces. We have sewn both of those seams and pressed towards the newly added pieces. As you can see, the fact that I used that pressing spray really makes for these nice crisp folds. They lay flat, they're easy to cut because they're nicely lined up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this to 6.5 inches. We want to make sure that it's 6.5. Sometimes the paper could shrink in a little bit as we're sewing. The key is we want it 6.5 inches. So we're going to line up our ruler all around the edge so that we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance beyond those points. Flip it around. If you have one of the rotating cutting mats, they work really well for doing that flipping and you don't have to move the block. You can leave your ruler in place. And there we have our beautifully trimmed block. Now we need to remove the paper. So let's see how it went. Remember the first one, that was the A2, that all we did was fold the paper. So removing it, it comes off. It's perforated with our needle when we're sewing, but it's not easy. Okay, so there's the first one. These are the little crumbs that are the worst to get off. The second one is the green on this side. This is where we used our tracing wheel. So once again, it was easy for us to fold on that line, and I think it's going to add, yeah, it's a little easier to remove the paper. That was easier. Now, A4, we used our perforating blade, and of course, as we look at that, I didn't pull it straight, but that comes off pretty well. And the last one again was our just using our ruler. Then to get this piece off, you just pull the corners and that comes off. So we have that block. Now what I have done on this block is I just used the perforating blade just to see, because I wanted to test and see how that seam holds up when I use this blade. I didn't want to have these pieces eventually come off before I finished the block. So in checking, this actually worked pretty well. You can see how easy that comes off. This is using the perforating blade for the entire block. Definitely for a large block, this is my favorite. This would be my first choice when it comes to foundation piecing and perforating those seam lines so that I can take the paper off quickly and easily, especially if I'm doing a lot of blocks. This would be my second choice for the very same reason. If I'm doing a lot of blocks, it is a little more difficult to take off the paper using this tool, but it still works. However, if I am doing a block that has some smaller pieces where there is a risk of the paper tearing as I'm going along, I would definitely use this as my first choice. My third choice would be just using the ruler and folding it. It really is a little tedious taking paper off when it's only been folded and only perforated by your sewing machine needle. So this would be my third choice. Another popular technique when it comes to foundation piecing is using freezer paper or freezer paper foundation piecing. If you would like to watch this tutorial, click here and it will walk you through the entire process of freezer paper foundation piecing. Now, we have covered a lot in this video, but I have included a PDF with all of the instructions as well as 3 foundation patterns that you can just test out the technique and see how you do. There are 2 simple patterns. One is illustrated in the PDF. The second one is the actual pattern that I used in the tutorial. And the third one is a little more challenging when you feel ready and up to it. Just click on the link in the description and you will get the hang of this technique in absolutely no time. Thank you so much for watching. I am always trying to be joyful, but I will always be merry.